You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we go above and beyond our traditional content of, talking about your Teslas and your VIXs and your SPY options. Move a little bit further afield, see what's going on in the realm of Bitcoin and ETH and all that other fun stuff from a volume, from a volatility, OI, SKEW, all those fun perspectives, and a whole lot more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. So as, of course, from the ever-compelling Options Insider Radio Network. Remember, if you guys want to go above and beyond, not just get it on demand, but, of course, join us live for this show, for all the other shows we do throughout the week, of course, as well as our awesome pro Q&A sessions and, of course, our Options Oddity shows on Friday. Then check us out over there on the pro side, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Just gave away our October Pro Trading Crate. That's fun. Those are all fun. Those kind of bespoke one-off things that we do for our pro members. If you want to get access, get a chance at the November Crate, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. I can look at a whole bunch of stuff here in the studio right now that we're giving away, listeners. It's pretty cool. So check it out over there. And of course, if you listen on demand, keep rating and reviewing. If you like what you hear, it does help. There's so many new people flocking to the world of crypto these days that find a path to a program like this, who are pretty new to the world of options and trading. So give them a hand, keep rating and reviewing. Chris, send those questions along as well. We do love to hear from all of you guys and gals out there. Let's see who we're hearing from on the program today. It is time to roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And today's guest is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Frank KABERNA, the Chief Content Strategist at the Small Exchange. Frank, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Mark, thanks so much for having me on. First and foremost, love all the different content that you are putting out here at Options Insider. And I know I've got a personalized message from our CEO, Donnie Roberts, here at the Small Exchange, who was on with all of you last, I believe it was June or July, last summer when we were first launching.
Yes.
He loves all your programming, and he's sorry to have missed you today. But I'm in here for you. We've got the B unit going for the crypto hot seat. What a segment, man! I feel really energized by this. I didn't know I was going to be in a hot seat.
Well, there you go. Hopefully it's not too uncomfortable for you. Only squirm a little bit, but it is the hot seat after all. And Frank, we'll start you off easy, as we were wont to do with all of our first timers here on the network. Why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the options and derivatives and indeed crypto spaces, as well as what it is the chief content strategist does day to day over there at the Small Exchange.
Yes, sure. It's quite a title. Hopefully I fulfill it. But yeah, I studied mathematics at University of Michigan, came out of school trading Asian and European markets. So that means the overnight at the Chicago Board of Trade, mainly in interest rate markets. So you got cash bonds and treasury futures and Eurodollar futures and all that stuff between the hours of basically 2 p.m. in the afternoon all the way until like 6, 7 a.m. the final day or the following day. And that was brutal. And then I finally landed actually after a year or so trading interest rates at the Board of Trade at Tasty Trade. I wrote for their main show for about 3 or so years, Tom and Tony on the Tasty Trade live show about advanced option strategies and everything else. So I got to put my math degree to work there, getting into all the options. And since then, I've become a little bit of the futures dude, so to speak, both on the network and then also over here at the Small Exchange, which launched a little over a year ago. I am the content and creative guy for everything that we put out from the Small Exchange. And yeah, you might say, well, what the heck, a futures exchange? What is the chief content strategist do for a futures exchange? Well, we launched this exchange, Mark, for everyday people. Almost every futures exchange that's been launched prior to us has been launched for, large institutions, banks, and farmers and producers using futures to hedge their products or their books, so to speak. And we decided, futures are such a beautiful world of derivatives. Why don't we come out with small products that are made for the everyday person and thus need a bunch of education and content helping that everyday person to both feel more comfortable in the space and get a handle of some strategies that could hopefully at the end of the day make them some money. So that's what I do now here at the Small Exchange.
You're right. We had your CEO, Donnie, on the network back when you guys launched back over a year ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. It was back in July 21st of last year. Obviously, a lot has happened since July of last year. So maybe let's start there before we get into all the fun crypto stuff. Give us a quick update on how things have been over there in the Small Exchange. Of course, these are amazing times for the retail side of the market. Everything small is enormous. We've seen, CME launching micro, just about everything over there. People can't get enough of these. So I have to imagine these were interesting times, probably good times for you guys to launch the Small Exchange. How have things been going over there since we checked in with you guys? How have the volume numbers been in this just retail explosion we're all living through here, Frank?
It's been fantastic, Mark. So yeah, we launched a little over a year ago, right around when Donnie jumped on with you in the summer of 2020. As we find ourselves in the fall of 2021, we actually just wrapped up here in October our best month ever in terms of volume, reaching a lot of people with the idea. We launched with 3 small products last summer. Since then, we've added 7, the most recent being our small crypto futures, but all with the same mission, which is like giving people who have smaller accounts the efficiency and the opportunities that futures have from a day trading or swing trading or even hedging perspective, just with smaller chunks. And, it's funny you bring in that idea of micros, which have, exploded, like you say, the micro S&P and the micro NASDAQ and everything else. And we feel like we've actually spurred a good amount of that. Before our launch, we we're talking about the small exchange. It was announced before actually launching the futures, and that's right around the time when S&P or when the micro S&P, micro Nasdaq were launching. What's funny as well is we launched, our micro or our small crude. They announced the micro crude offering on the day that we actually launched our small crude product. So it's a bunch of real fun, competitive stuff here in the futures exchange world. But what's great for the retail trader, what's great for all your listeners out there, is it's a competition to offer them as many products and tools designed for them at the end of the day. As we go smalls and micros go head to head here. Obviously, they've got a good amount of historical backing and size relative to our small startup exchange. But we're not doing too shabby. Just had our best month ever. Our community is growing like mad, and we're continuing to put out more products on about a month or 2 month basis. And you're going to be looking at options hopefully by the end of the year here, Mark.
I like it. Music to my ears. But before we get ahead of ourselves here, obviously this is the crypto hot seat. So let's sink our teeth into that. You folks have been busy since the last time we chatted, including adding a new crypto offering. Like you mentioned, CME, we always talk about those products on here. Those are aimed at a different audience. And those are obviously Bitcoin direct futures there in terms of actually on the underlying Bitcoin. You guys have taken a little bit of a different approach with your crypto offering. So walk us through it here, Frank. What is it you guys are offering and what is included in that?
Well, first, as you can imagine, the trend across all of our asset classes is take those micros and make them even smaller. So our crypto offering with this first product and individual coins that we'll be hitting as soon as possible, everything's going to be a fractional size of those larger futures that are currently out there on your platform and everywhere else. So what we have here is the small crypto futures, Mark. SCCX is the symbol there, depending on where you're trading. And you can go to smallexchange.com for more information on this product. It'll be the banner image right on the home page there. And this product has Bitcoin and Ethereum in it, as well as 15 stocks in the crypto field. And we made sure that each of those stocks has a high correlation to Bitcoin and ETH as well, with our idea being like, okay, I guess I'll lift the curtain a little bit here, Mark. There's a lot of red tape to offering single coin futures. That's why you don't see a bunch of these coins in a very robust futures offering. It's very difficult, and we're going through part of that process right now. Until then, we were like, well, what if we take, the grayscale Bitcoin and ETH products and then 15 stocks that range from, big names like PayPal and Square that obviously have their own leanings in the crypto market, but also, Silvergate, SI, and CLSK, and Marathon Digital, MARA, a bunch of these smaller stocks that are really tied to crypto, Riot in there as well, obviously, and create like a crypto stock market. Essentially, what the NASDAQ did for technology or what the Dow did for industry back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and do that for crypto. And thus, we can get around some of this red tape and then also offer you a product that moves with crypto, has a different take on it that you can maybe spread against Bitcoin or against these other movements in the underlying actual physical market there, and give you all of that, Mark, in a product that's about $3,000 in size. And right now I'm looking at the margins, cost you less than $600 to trade. And in the crypto futures world, everything is thousands. Some are tens to hundreds of thousands in that buying power. So a real small, lean product here that's got Bitcoin, it's got ETH in it, but it also has 15 names that are highly correlated and names that if you were wanting to invest in the space or get short the space, those are the names that you would want to go to in there. And like I say, all in a lean package, SCCX futures.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website right now. You mentioned all the different holdings. Let's just break them down here for the audience. AMD listeners, 6.2%. Canaan, 6.1%. CleanSpark, 4.6%. Coinbase, got to have them in there, 5.7%. eBang 4.8%, then the Grayscale Bitcoin 7%. Interestingly enough, the largest, at least from a percentage standpoint, holding Grayscale ETH at 8.7%. Then Marathon Digital 7.2%, MicroStrategy 5.6%, NVIDIA, perennial top 10er out there, 6%, PayPal 5.3%, Riot Blockchain, super hot in the early days of all the meme madness out there, 5.1%, Silvergate 5.6%, SOS 4.7%, Square 5.9%, Taiwan Semi 5.4%, and the 9 rounding out the holdings there at 6%. So interesting stuff there. I know this just launched not too long ago, Frank, but how has the response been so far in terms of volume and the uptake over there?
So the response has been overwhelmingly positive, because here's the nice thing about what we do from the futures side is, like, we of course want to put stuff out there that is useful for the everyday trader. But at the end of the day, when we launch, small oil or we launch small crypto, it's not because we think the market's going to go up or down. We don't have a bias. We just want to create something that's accessible. So what's really been nice, Mark, is that we're getting positive feedback from the crypto heads out there who are like, ooh, nice, like a crypto stock market, very interesting thing. Like, we got picked up by Bloomberg Crypto, one of their fantastic writers over there, picked up our launch and was like, this is an interesting little thing that I haven't seen out there, which is, a crypto stock market future. So the crypto fans are in there probably looking, as you could imagine, to maybe invest at something that's efficient with their capital, getting over $3,000 worth of all of those names you just listed for under $600. That's real efficiency in the space here. And also those people who are, maybe you call them crypto holdouts, who are just starting to become comfortable with the price action in there and buying and selling it and looking at the volatility and thinking about maybe different volatility strategies or just simple price action strategies. They now have a product that you can buy and sell really easily. And like I say, in small chunks here, you don't have to worry about pattern day trading or anything like that, like you would with the ETFs and the options on those. And it's been a very positive launch here. Now, the problem, and not necessarily a problem, it's one that we're fixing here. The product hasn't been out a full month yet. And so, of course, there's going to be some bumps in the road, as you could imagine, with a small company that's on there's nothing out there like this. The liquidity has been a little bit of an exercise here. And we've been working tirelessly. I had a meeting earlier today with other market makers to get more people in here. The unfortunate thing is that crypto is so, and you definitely know this, Mark, because I heard it was part of the intro to this segment. Liquidity is one of the biggest problems in this industry because everything's so new. And also everything is volatile. And so it's like, how are we going to lay off? How would market makers who are making markets in S&Ps, the futures, against the ETFs, against the top names that are extremely liquid in there, and all the different ways you could lay off risk? In crypto, you've got the spot Bitcoin and then the futures in Bitcoin. And then when you start to mix in ETH and these other things, it can be a little trying. So we launched with a market that was about, 10 to 20 ticks wide, now getting into the meat of the day being within 10 ticks wide. And we're getting better and better at that. But everybody's been, our community is super strong and understanding of the fact that, small, young company creating something that is so new and innovative, there's going to be some hurdles. But other than that, everybody's been, loving an opportunity to just buy and sell Bitcoin in a smaller chunk. And that's, as you could see, with the highest weightings being Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's what essentially this product is.
You mentioned the ETH. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are curious about, the ETH holding being the largest percentage weight, 8.7%. Was there a reason behind that, or is that kind of just how the cookie crumbled when you guys started breaking it all down there, Frank?
Well, with indexing, there's a few different things that skew this stuff. And most of this is technically an equity index future, which is actually, it might sound like, oh man, that stinks, but it's actually a really nice thing at the end of the day for retail traders is you're trading crypto the same way that you would trade micro S&Ps and everything else. You don't have to open a new wallet, and also the thing settles to cash at the future's expiration, just like an equity index future. But because of that, Mark, the indexing is funky. You have to assign these weights, and then also price action dictates those weights by the time launch comes around. So the way that we usually do things in our equity index futures is we try to give stuff relatively equal weightings. Our small stocks futures, that has 5 market sectors: energy, financials, tech, industrials, and I'm missing materials, I think is the last one. And we want everybody, when you're trading those names that are across those 5 sectors, we want a little bit of a bang from each one of them. When you look at NASDAQ being almost 50% in the top 10 of 100 holdings, it's like, well, then why even have the bottom 20 of the holdings? They're all less than a percentage point. So we wanted everything to have at least a couple percentage points. Now, that being said, we did skew it a little heavy to the Bitcoin and ETH product because we want this thing to have a high correlation to the coins themselves. At the end of the day, we don't want something that, news story in NVIDIA is dragging this market one way or the other when cryptocurrency is moving the other direction. So it was a little bit of looking to give those two markets a relatively higher weighting with everything relatively equal across the board outside of it. But then also, you create these indexes, Mark, for futures months and months before the futures actually launch. And then ETH goes on a little bit of a run. It's going to be, because of that price action, it's going to be a higher weighting. And so that's how you arrive at, 7% in Bitcoin, almost 9% in ETH, where everything else is sitting around 5 to 6%.
You anticipated my next question, sir, because people are going to come to this now, of course, and look at this, going to see this as their proxy for crypto, which is what it's intended to do. But also, you're right, they're going to want to see it correlating to the major currencies, in particular, of course, ETH and Bitcoin. So how does it stack up to those? I mean, obviously, it's only been a month, so we only have a little bit of data. But I'm sure you guys have back tested this a little bit. How does it stack up from a correlation perspective? Does it move more in lockstep with one or the other, Bitcoin or ETH, or is it kind of its own beast that does its own thing out there, Frank?
It's mostly a little bit of the latter. Like, of course, so the correlation, of course, we assigned a bunch of back-tested data to this, and I can hit you with a lot of that. I'll hit you with some of that right off the bat. You can ask for more if you want. It's got about a 0.85 correlation to Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think a little bit closer to Bitcoin than Ethereum there. And I think that probably is just more owing to the blue chip status of Bitcoin. And I would guess that, like, as Bitcoin goes, a lot of these stocks go, whereas Ethereum can have more one-off moves. But either way, in the 0.7 to 0.8 correlation handle for Ethereum and sitting a little bit north of 0.8, this index relative to Bitcoin. And so we made sure to manicure this index to make sure that it has at least, 0.7, 0.8 correlation. But then when you create something new, and we have, as I alluded to earlier, the full intention of launching small Bitcoin, small ETH, and then some small other coins that are gaining huge market caps as well, that there's not great access to in the derivative space yet. But with this thing, we wanted to make something, knowing that we're offering the coins in their singular fashion down the line, Mark, give us something that still is a little bit of its own beast, right? Like, I have micro Bitcoin, which is small, not small enough in terms of our appetite here at the small exchange. I want something here that isn't a one-for-one correlation, so I can get my Bitcoin and I can trade this off of it. I want to be able to trade, this crypto stock market against these things. Of course, the high correlation tells me that 8-9 days out of 10, everything's moving in the same direction. So if I'm investing in the long term, or I'm trading for, a week-long or 2-week-long trade, the correlation's there, and you can feel confident that this market is going to trend the same direction as Bitcoin and ETH and the crypto market at large. But on a day-to-day basis, some of the most interesting stuff in here is the day trading this product against the micro Bitcoin, or just looking for an edge in such a young product. And that's when most of the edge is in there for arbing and everything else. Looking at this thing relative to the crypto landscape, knowing it is a little bit of its own beast, like you say.
Well, you launched this at an interesting time, like I mentioned, not just from the product perspective, but also from an environment perspective. Of course, we're just hot off the heels, a couple of weeks in now on the launch of the big ProShares Bitcoin ETF, which of course just got all the headlines everywhere. I can't remember any other time, certainly since we've been doing this show and probably in the history of the network, where Bitcoin futures have been this much in the conversation and the headlines. Maybe back when CME and SIBO launched theirs back in 2017. But even then, it's a question. More people have been hitting us up and talking about and asking questions about Bitcoin futures than I can ever recall in the history of this network. So certainly an interesting time to be launching this new product. I mean, you could argue maybe the ProShares product is taking up all the oxygen in the room, but the flip side of that is people are now aware of this marketplace on a level that they really never have been before. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Frank, what are your thoughts on this product that does incorporate a lot of Bitcoin futures? And then B, has that driven a lot of subsequent interest in what you guys are doing over there?
Well, first of all, we love it. Like we have no intention. I mean, it would be it'd be great if at some point we were so successful that we were the only futures exchange in the place. But we know that we're right now, only a year in, a small piece of a huge organism. So whenever a story like that comes out, and people who they kind of know about futures, they've heard about it before, but now they're actively, whether they know it or not, getting research and getting information on what futures are. We absolutely love it because that's free education where we're concerned. And then we can come in off the top rope and be like, yeah, but forget about that exchange traded product that holds futures. Go to the futures, my friend. We've got them for you. And so it's a great thing to see. We absolutely love it. We feel like futures for the smaller everyday person, we're just on the cusp of that kind of its own takeover, similar to options. I mean, when I landed at Tasty Trade 5 or 6 years ago at this point, when I got there, options were starting to gain some steam. And now in the last year or two, options, almost everybody knows calls and puts now. And that wasn't the case. And I'm sure you know this. It wasn't the case 5-10 years ago. Futures, we feel like, is on a similar trajectory where micros are launched. Oh, and there's this small exchange and there's other exchanges popping up to create futures that are just smaller for everyday people. And it's like kind of in the collective subconscious. And at some point, maybe crypto is what does it, but it's going to click and futures are going to become much more commonplace in the everyday investor and active traders portfolio. So we absolutely love these news stories that come out that just get people more acquainted with the landscape of products, because it's funny enough, futures are simpler than options. You want the thing to go up, you buy it. You want it to go down, you sell it. And what's really nice is that you can day trade it without any rulings on that or regulation. And it's a lot cheaper. I mean, our crypto product, you have to put up about 10% to trade the thing back and forth, not 50 or 100% like you would with an ETF. Now, my opinion of the product that came out is, and I guess I'm interested to kind of throw it back at you. Hopefully I don't make any enemies. I hate exchange traded products that basket futures. I absolutely hate them. They've got this inherent drag to them that is just brutal. The thing, especially if you're trading, 30, 60, 90-day strategies, or God bless you, a year-long strategies, and something that's got a drag like that to it. It's just a rough thing to see, especially, like I say, the futures are becoming more accessible to people with the micros, with the smalls. Just go to the futures and buy and sell the thing. And when you go to roll it, you roll it on your own terms and don't have to deal with this inherent drag from a fund manager who's rolling positions on a daily basis and just eating into the profits there. Of course, it's fine to day trade an exchange traded product like that, but if you're holding it or you're trading, like I say, more than month-long strategies, that drag can really mess you up. So I'm not a big fan of those. The crude oil one, similar to that. The natural gas one is a tough one as well when that drag brings that product down, and they reverse split it 1 million times to bring it the price higher. So I'm not a big fan of those, but I love people getting educated on derivatives in general.
You're right. I've heard the term negative roll yield and drag more times over the last couple of weeks than I have in quite some time. So that education is getting out there, Frank. Well, I appreciate you joining us today on the crypto hot seat to break down all things small crypto over there. We got to keep on rolling with the show. But before we go, Frank, if folks are intrigued, I got to imagine a lot of them are, and they want to kick the tires for themselves on some small crypto contracts, where should they go? What should they do?
Absolutely. I mean, smallexchange.com is going to give you a bunch of information on the crypto offering and everything else that we offer here at the Small Exchange. Also, we've got a fantastic YouTube channel and Twitter as well. That's just, honestly, our whole thing is like as much education and content we can put out there on futures and markets in general for the everyday trader. We're going to put it out there. So go check out the Small Exchange on YouTube. We upload stuff every single day, fully formed strategy ideas every single day there. And then the Small Exchange on Twitter as well. And if you find me, Frank_KABERNA on Twitter, you can tweet at me. I'm accessible all the time. I'll answer any tweet thrown my way on small crypto and otherwise. So Mark, that is those are all my plugs. Thanks so much for having me today, man.
Well, we're happy to have you on. That is, of course, the Small Exchange. You can find them on most of your major platforms, YouTube, social media. Give them a follow on the old Twitters, listeners, at small_exchange. Frank, good luck with this new product. I'm looking forward to checking back in with you guys sometime, maybe sooner than a year and a half next time, and see how things are cooking over there at the Small Exchange, sir.
Absolutely. We're going to launch options here in a month or so, man. So we'll have to come back on and talk some Greek.
Sounds like someone's angling for a return to the hot seat. I like it. All right. Check them out over there, listeners. Small Exchange. It is time for us to keep on rolling. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. By the way, I hope you folks enjoyed that chat. Interesting stuff afoot out there in the world of crypto from a product perspective. It's not just spot Bitcoin all day, even though for this segment, it kind of is a lot of it. And coming into showtime in terms of vol, let's get into it. By the way, all of our numbers coming at you courtesy of our friends at GVol.io. That's the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. You can get all these analytics like we're talking about right now. Let's look at the average at the money volatility out there in Bitcoin first. Kind of a nice average of the term structure out there in terms of what we're seeing from a broad Bitcoin vol perspective. Last show is at about an 83%, and coming into this show is at about an 84%. So not a lot of change from an overall vol perspective. Coming into, actually, we had our friend Simon Ho on the show last week talking about his BitVol, also his BitSkew. BitVol you can find for yourselves over there at T3 Index, listeners. It was about an 88.75 on our last show. Coming into this show, 91.25 to be precise. In terms of SKEW, last show, about 2.9 positive. This week, about the same, about a positive 2.6. Let's look at BitSkew. Let's see what Simon has cooking from a BitSkew perspective. On our last show, it was about a 90.6, and it's come in a little bit since our last show, about an 88.25. So coming off a little over 2 points there. And again, it has a range of about 77 to about 95 over the course of the past year out there. Let's look at it from an OI perspective, what's going on from an open interest change since our last show. Remember, since our last show, we saw October roll off the board. So it took a fair amount of OI with it. Calls open on Bitcoin right now, coming into showtime, about 123,000 open. Again, this is on Deribit, the leading platform out there. That's down not quite 20,000, about 18,000 contracts in this time last week. So again, front month's going to take a lot of paper with it. That's just the case. Puts 55,000 contracts open. It's down about 11,000 from this time last week. Again, a lot of that going the way of the dodo with October. Let's look at where you guys are lining up from an expiration perspective. Now that October is gone, Dees is firmly in control with number one out there. 85,000 contracts open in December. That's up slightly, about 2,000 from this time last week. The rest of the top three are pretty much infinitesimal by comparison. November is the closest at number two with about 30,000 contracts. And March, going out to another quarterly again, is a distant number three with about 19,000 contracts. In terms of what's going on from an overall Bitcoin OI perspective, in terms of the notional value of that OI, remember, there's less of it now, and we're a little bit lighter from a price perspective out there. So we're going to see a little bit of a reduction as a lot of that October goes the way of the dodo. So last show, we had about 12 billion open on Deribit. This show had about 11 billion open on Deribit. So a little bit of a decrease out there. If you add in all the other venues, your CME, your bit.com, your LedgerX's, et cetera, you're going to get around 12 billion, a little bit north of 12 billion total, all things considered. Volume-wise, the notional value of the volume that went up this week, pretty decent week. Really, I should say a decent day. October 29th, we did a billion again, 1.1 billion to be precise. Nothing else really that close to that the rest of the week. The highest we got, I think, was around 750 million. Still, nothing to sneeze at compared to what we saw back in the quiet days of summer, July and August. We were doing 100-odd million a day worth of notional volume. So much more than that, that's for sure. But compared to the recent days we've seen out there, a little bit lighter, where, the week before we saw pretty much every day of the week north of 1 billion worth of notional volume. That's a lot of paper. Didn't quite see that last week, but still a pretty active week, all things considered. In terms of the action out there, where are you guys lining up from a strike perspective? What is the size position out there right now in Bitcoin? Well, let's find out. Let's go from the bottom to the top this time. Let's mix it up a little bit. Number 5 is a newcomer to the top 5. It is the 200,000 strike. So that's where we are, listeners, already there at the 200,000 level. 7,300 contracts open. That's, again, a newcomer, but still 200,000. We're flirting at around a 60,000 right now in Bitcoin. That 200K on the radar. Impressive. Number 4, 120,000 strike. That used to be our most optimistic. That has 9,200 contracts open. That's down about 600 from this time last week. Not a huge change from last week. Number 3 is the 80,000 strike with 10,000 contracts open. That's down about 2,000 from this time last week. Number 2 is the par strike, aka the 100,000 strike. That's got about 13,000 contracts open. That's down about 3,000 from this time last week. That means the big dog, number 1, is the 70,000 strike. It seemed very optimistic not too long ago. These days, 70K isn't that far away. 14,000 contracts open there. That's down about 2,000 from this time last week. So pretty much down across the board, except for the 200K strike. That one probably gaining a little bit of steam over the course of the past week. Speaking of gaining steam, we just talked about it with Frank. The ProShares launch has driven a lot of action out there on the CME products, the futures, and the options. And we're seeing that reflected. Let's go out to the options first over there in CME. The OI, nearly 1,600 contracts. That's a ton for that product that can do 30 contracts in a week sometimes. So getting the OI up to 1,600, that's actually pretty impressive out there. Decent day last Friday as well, last trading day as well. Well over 100 contracts on the tape. So we're seeing the reflected glow of the futures now in the options and starting to translate into more options out there. The futures, we're doing pretty robust business immediately after the launch of the ProShares product. Seems like that has come down a little bit. I think there was a little bit of concern over position limits out there as well, so maybe that impacted them a little bit. Only 8,300 contracts going up on Friday. The OI coming in a little bit as well. Obviously, October going away. So the OI is down about 2,000 contracts to about 15,200 out there on the CME big futures. Still active, but not quite as active as they have been in the immediate BTO launch period. And the micro Bitcoin future, same deal, active, but not explosive. The OI is down about 1,000 contracts, still up to about 62,500. So pretty decent OI out there. On the micro front, the most recent trading day, Friday, again, kind of a quiet day, only about 17,000 contracts on the tape out there as we keep on rolling to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the Altcoin Universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Altcoin Universe, the portion of the show where we break down everything else outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now when we start in the top 10 and see what's lighting it up. And just holding on to its spot in the top 10, there is good old Doge with about, 35 and a third billion worth of market cap up there. Number 9. If 10 didn't get you outraged enough, number 9 certainly will. Yes, it's Shiba Inu, listeners. This thing, I don't know what to make of this thing, quite frankly. A lot of you love it. Many more of you hate it. They think these types of quote unquote projects that really have no meaningful use case, no meaningful value, kind of detract from some of the more beneficial crypto out there. Whatever your viewpoint is on it, it's fighting its way into the top 10. Number 9, 38, almost 39 billion worth of market cap right now for freaking Shiba Inu. Wow, that's just crazy times, listeners. Number 8, Polkadot at about 47.5 billion. Number 7, XRP over the 50 billion, almost 51 billion worth of market cap. Number 6, it's Solana, back down ever so briefly below the 200 level. This thing's all over the place of late. Still worth about exactly 60 billion worth of market cap out there. Number 5, it's Cardano, 64.6 billion. Number 4, it's Tether, 70.3 billion. Number 3, Binance Coin, 89, almost 90 billion. You know what number 2 is? It's ETH, 505 billion. And the big dog, number 1, Bitcoin, holding firm north of 1T, 1.1 T to be precise out there in Bitcoin land. But yeah, that bottom part of the top 10, obviously going to drive some controversy out. This going out to number 2. No controversy really on ETH, flirting with some new all-time highs out there these days. Up 87, almost 100 handles from this time last week. Had a little bit of range out there, a low of about 38, almost just a little bit shy of 3,900, 38.95 or so. That was on the 27th, and hit the high of nearly 4,300, 4,290 on the 29th. So some nice levels out there for all the ETH bulls. Vol-wise, we're seeing it start to tick up a little bit. It's always been frothy out there, flirting with the triple-digit level, breaking through it this week. Last week, we're at 97%. This week, at 101%. SKEW-wise, though, a little bit of a decrease out there. Last week, it was about a 9.2 on the SKEW in ETH land. This show, about a 5.1, so a lot less out there. In terms of OI, also a lot less out there. Again, same deal in ETH that we saw in Bitcoin. Front month going away, taking a lot of paper with it. The ETH calls are back below 1 million now, 962,000 contracts open. It's down about 38,000 from this time last week. The puts, 386,000. It's down about 35,000. Again, Bitcoin and ETH, both of them still so call heavy out there. You're really hard pressed to find a lot of puts to sink your teeth into out there. Still all calls all the time in the leading crypto out there. Of course, a little bit of action out there in the ETH OI. Of course, we've seen a rally since our last show. So we've seen pretty much, even though the OI, some of that has rolled off the board, we've seen enough to make up for that. And so we actually saw about 6 billion worth of OI open. So a little bit of a tick up out there in the notional value of that OI. Also, a pretty decent week out there, all things considered, coming into showtime from the volume perspective. Again, not blowing the doors off, but decent, all things considered out there. Let's go on out to see where you folks are lining up from an overall expiration perspective. Remember, October going the way of the dodo, taking some paper with it. That means DEES firmly number 1 in the ETH seat there. 558,000 contracts open. It's up about 16,000 from this time last week, followed by number 2, March, distant number 2, 276,000. It's up about 20,000. And November, a distant, very distant number 3, 194,000 contracts. That's a newcomer to our top 3. We'll see how those evolve over the course of the coming weeks. In terms of evolution, let's see what's going on from a size position perspective out there in ETH options right now. What's the big dog out there? Well, actually, let's go the other way. Let's start the way we did in Bitcoin options. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. Number 5 out there in the Bitcoin size positions is the 5,500 strike with about 47,000 contracts open. That's actually down 6,000 from this time last week. Number 4, it's the 6,000 strike with 72,000 contracts open. That's actually up about 7,000 from this time last week. Number 3, the 15K strike, getting pretty optimistic there. That's got about 83,000 contracts open. It's up about 8,000 from this time last week. Number 2, the 10K strike, 9,200. That's up about 11,000. And number 1, the big dog, still the 5,000 strike, 102,000 contracts open there. That's actually down about 6,000 from this time last week. ETH futures over there at CME haven't really been seeing the same lift that the Bitcoin products have. OI ticking up a little bit. It's up about 200 to about 5,200 contracts. Last trading day, we saw about 5,000 contracts on the tape. So a bit of an increase, but nothing crazy to write home about. Something pretty much you can say the same for the rest of the leading altcoin out there as well. Ripple off slightly about a penny from our show last week. Doge actually taking a little of an increase since our last show. As I mentioned, Doge now in the top 10, up almost a full penny, not quite, from this time last week. Litecoin down $3 from this time last week. Other leading crypto, we got Cardano down about 22 cents, Polkadot up nearly $4, and Solana down 11.5 bucks from this time last week. We got our live chatters. Mr. Unlimited, all excited. I know he's got some Shiba. He says Shiba at number 9. He's all excited about that. Yeah, you and the other Shiba hodlers out there are looking pretty good. All right, everybody. Unfortunately, no time for the questions this week. Got to keep on rolling here. But I want to thank our guest, Frank from the Small Exchange. Check them out. Small Exchange on pretty much every social media platform. Or just check them out on Twitter, just at @small_exchange to check out all the latest. I think you want to check out this crypto offering. If you want something a little bit more bite-sized than what CME has to offer, and maybe also a little bit more diversified than just a product on ETH or indeed on Bitcoin, then this one certainly will draw your attention. And of course, keep those questions and comments coming. Love to hear from all you folks. We'll be back again tomorrow with the Pro Q&A, going out to the futures realm again. Got Virginia McGlathy coming on to talk all things ags. I think a lot of you are going to have some questions about that. Already hitting us up with questions for that. So get those questions in now. Also got a live options boot camp coming at you tomorrow. Wednesday, got a big conference going on in town here. So I'll actually be heading off down there. First person event in over a year here. So that'll be interesting to see how things are going as the entire derivatives world descends on Chicago. Masks in hand, of course. Don't worry about that, listeners. Then back again on Thursday for the option block and TWIFO Friday ball views. And of course, options oddities. And then back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. We'll see you then.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.